Okay. Good morning. My name is Amber Coté. I am the Director of Education and Service Enterprise for Colorado Nonprofit Association, and I welcome all of you here this morning for our second in the series of Stories from the Frontlines. Today we'll be talking to some folks who are working in the area of providing food to communities, particularly in Southern Colorado. We have some representatives from Colorado Springs Food Rescue, Care and Share Food Bank, and Manna Soup Kitchen. And I'm going to let those folks introduce themselves, but I just wanted to let you all know that we're going to hear some stories from people who are working directly with folks, hear about their own experience, and then of course the people that they're working with and how these times are affecting the people on the front lines and the people that they are serving. You are welcome to put questions in the chat. I'm here on my own. I usually have my colleague Nick to answer chat questions with me. So I will be checking the chat as we go, but please feel free to ask any questions in the chat. And then as we get closer to the end, if we have time, then I certainly welcome any questions for you to come off mute and ask directly to the folks who are here to share their stories. We are recording this session. We will upload it to YouTube and share it with the community afterward. But we are really thrilled to have you all here. And I am just deeply grateful for those of you who were able to come today and share your stories. I know because you are on the front lines, you're very, very busy people. And so to be here today and share with us your time and resources is just greatly appreciated. So without further ado, I'm going to I'm going to start with Colorado Springs Food Rescue, and then we will move to Anne and then Catherine. And I'm just going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves, to say the organization you work for, what you do in that organization, what your organization does for the community. And I guess I will start with Patience and then Victoria.
Sure. So my name is Patience Kabwasa, and I'm the Executive Director for Colorado Springs Food Rescue. Our mission is to cultivate a more equitable food system in the Colorado Springs community, and we do that really in three different ways, through access, education, and production. So our
Patience?
Sure.
Real quick, your audio is a little, do you have like headphones on or, okay.
I'm going to turn my video off is that better?
Yeah, it is. It is. Thank you.
Okay. So while I talk, I'll turn my video off. Again, Patience Kabwasa, Executive Director for Colorado Springs Food Rescue. I don't know where I last cut off, but we cultivate a more equitable food system really through three ways: access, education, and production. So access, we have our no-cost grocery programs. Pre-COVID, we had 9 across the city. Since COVID, we've had to, and Victoria can go into more detail about this, but we've had to completely change our operations and how we get food out to the community through our no-cost grocery programs. Education, we have a high school youth internship, which previously ran at some different schools in the city, but we are now moving that to land-based education on our property, which we will begin constructing next year in the Hillside neighborhood. 3.5 acres of land. It will have an outdoor production farm, as well as a space for neighbors to cook, grow, advocate, access fresh food. So we're incredibly excited about that. COVID has, I think it's brought to, I think in a lot of ways, I've heard this, at the beginning of the year, people were saying 2020 vision. And I think that more than anything, this year has really done just that, brought immense clarity around just things that I think that, several of us on this call maybe have been talking about for years. And it just feels like we're in a space where there's momentum because more people are just seeing the effects of disparity, not just in the food system, but economic justice and its effects. So yeah, we're busy, we're working.
Yes, I know. You are working. I hear about it through the community. Full disclosure, my mom is actually a community member in Hillside, and so she's always letting me know how hard you all are working too. So thank you for the work you're doing, Patience. And Victoria.
Before I really get started, I'm just going to say, Amber, we love your mom because we've had a couple of community markets here in front of our office, and she always stops by and forwards the information to other people and makes purchases from us. So thank her for that. I guess she'll see this. Good morning, y'all. My name is Victoria Stone, and I am the Director of Food Access at Colorado Springs Food Rescue. I have been here about a year, and the interesting thing is, I think once I would have normally started getting my land legs and being able to do my job to something that looks like a reasonable standard, we hit a pandemic, and everything that we had planned and everything that I learned went right out the window. Patients alluded to the fact that a lot of things changed. And I would say one of the things that really excited me about originally coming to work here was our no-cost grocery programs. So the many different sites, they were set up beautifully, like produce, meat, vegetable. I mean, it looked better than my local grocery store, and people could come in and just pick up groceries and then walk out with zero payment. And I love that. And since COVID, we have had to bring a lot of things in-house. And to keep everybody safe, we now box things. People wait in line 6 feet apart. And it's been just incredibly sad to do that for so long. And it's interesting because I think we try our best to provide a service with like dignity and non-judgment and just joy, but we literally can't interact the same way that we used to. And so we're kind of like, hey, let's throw this goat cheese into this box, and I hope it lands in the box of somebody that really loves goat cheese. Maybe we win some. But it's been a really interesting new way of doing work that has really, I think, informed all of the people that volunteer and work at CSFR, just like in a heart and a head level. Because like when the pandemic started, nobody knew what to do. And now that it's lasted so long, I think there's like a lot of fatigue about what to do. So that was my real long introduction, and I will talk to you all more in a little bit.
And Victoria, I meant to ask you or Patience this, but can you orient us, because because Colorado Nonprofit Association serves the state of Colorado, can you sort of let people know sort of even geographically where you are in the big picture, and then where you are like in community in terms of like just a little bit around Hillside?
Yeah, so Colorado Springs, of course, Southern Colorado, and we are actually in an interesting food desert that I now like to call downtown adjacent Colorado Springs. So longtime Colorado Springs people were located in the old Helen Hunt School, which is now the Helen Hunt campus, along with a lot of other nonprofits. And we are in the southern area. Depending on what zip code you live in, you might consider us southeast, but some places consider us just, we're adjacent of everything, downtown and southeast Colorado Springs.
Thank you. Thank you. Anne, can you introduce yourself, tell us about MANA, and then also orient us also where you are in Colorado?
So I am Ann Morse. I'm the Executive Director of MANA. MANA is a 501c3 that was established in 1985. We provide food to those in need throughout La Plata County and the Four Corners region. So we're located in the southwest region of Colorado. We're open 7 days a week. Our current programming consists of daily grab and go meals. We also distribute bulk groceries to partnering organizations. We have a take-home backpack program that feeds food insecure students over the weekend. We have a culinary training program. Right now, it's a 5-week program that provides life skills, culinary, and baking training to help students get gainful employment. We also have a half-acre garden with, we just last year got a greenhouse built. So we produce produce that goes into the kitchen. And then also we do CSA weekly share boxes that we distribute to the community. This year we just merged with the Garden Project of Southwest Colorado. And so with that, we're also doing some educational programming to 9R school district. And then we also provide supportive services. So we provide birth certificates, ID, and driver license assistance. We do SNAP enrollment and redetermination assistance, and then referrals to other organizations. We also provide like bus tokens, bus passes, haircut vouchers, clothing, camping gear, and thrift store vouchers. With just a staff of 6, we have 5 AmeriCorps service members. They're RAD service members. And so with a small staff, we really rely on the teamwork. And so really depending on what day it is, kind of varies what everybody's roles is. What I do with such a small staff, I act as the grant writer, the fundraiser, we, outreach, human resources. So really, we're extremely fortunate with the staff we have and everybody working together through everything that's happened in this last year.
And that is amazing. I had no idea Manna did so much. I knew Manna covered a lot of ground in terms of just the people that you serve and that you had extensive services outside of a food pantry, but I didn't realize it was that comprehensive. It sounds like you're really a wraparound organization for your community in a really big way.
Thank you.
And
yes, and oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I'll let you know how COVID has helped us do that, and actually is going to help us move towards a new strategic plan and our next steps.
Wonderful. Thank you. I can't wait to hear about that. All I was going to say a minute ago was just that for anyone who's watching, that Anne needs to be off video because they are in a rural community and the internet is not as strong in La Plata County. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that for all of the county, but definitely where you are, Anne. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's part of our goal. Is we're on copper cable. And so with that, all our internet, our phone runs through that. And we didn't ever realize what an issue that was until COVID hit and everything became more internet based. Everybody started working from home and we have really struggled with that. So I realized we were in a rural community, but that really let us know that really quick, like, oh yeah, no one really does have great internet here. So
No
we're working on that.
Thank you for being here, Anne. And I know, again, like Patience and Victoria, that you're very, very busy. And I just appreciate you taking time out of your morning to be here with us. Thank you. Catherine. Catherine's with Karen Share Food Bank of Southern Colorado. And Catherine, if you can talk about all the regions that Karen Share serves, your role at Karen Share, and any other information about the mission of your work.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm really honored to be a part of the conversation today. So thanks for inviting me, Amber. My name is Catherine Hagenbush. I'm here representing Karen Share Food Bank for Southern Colorado. I work as our grants manager, so I work on the team that helps raise the funds to do the work that we do. A bit about Karen Share. Our mission is to provide food, partnering opportunities, and education to combat hunger and food insecurity in Southern Colorado communities. We've been around for 48 years. We have a distribution center in Colorado Springs and in Pueblo. We're an affiliate of Feeding America, which is the national network of food banks across the country. And our service area is the southern half of the state of Colorado. So that includes 31 counties. It's a geographically and demographically diverse region, which presents its own challenges. Just to give a sense of the scope of work we do, last year we distributed 22 million pounds of food across that service area. And most of that food is distributed through our partner agencies. So we work with 250 partner agencies in our area. That includes food pantries, schools, community centers, healthcare partners, and they do the direct distributions to the neighbors in their community who need food. So our role is kind of to be the expert in larger scale food acquisition and storage and distribution, those logistics, so that our partners can focus their resources and their energy on the work they do best, such as housing assistance or medical assistance, job training. We do have some programs that we like some direct distribution programs that we operate, such as our mobile food pantries and children's programs where we partner with schools across the community to get food to kids. So that's a little bit about our work.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And I know that this is a really big week for Care and Share in general. Isn't this your turkey, what is it called?
Take a Turkey to Work Day is this Friday. So traditionally we have people drop off turkeys at local grocery stores on their way to work, but everything has changed about Take a Turkey to Work Day this year. So we're doing online donations and donations at our distribution center. So, and it's also our biggest food drive of the year through local schools called Harvest of Love. So it's just a big time for us gearing up for Thanksgiving and the holidays.
Yeah. So it's a super busy time for me to ask you to be here. And it is for all of you. Part of the reason why I wanted to do this particular subject during November was because of this holiday that is so focused on food and families coming together and eating together. And obviously all of that is upside down. But it also means that you all are extra busy right now. So again, I just thank you all for your time and being here with us today. So I'm going to go back to patients, and my first question is really, how are you? And how has this affected your life? You can speak to that from a perspective of your work, or just how everything is sort of intersecting your personal and professional, however you'd like to address that, Patience.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that. I think it's really good for us to take the time to check in on each other because this, I really don't think anybody's okay. I think we're trying to get through it the best way that we can. We're trying to plan. We're trying to muscle through. There's a lot, depending upon what your intersections are. Personally, mine, trying to navigate homeschool at this time in conjunction with just, being an organization that is on the front lines of food systems in our community. There's a lot that I feel like we haven't really slowed down. Our work has shifted, and we have broken it up as far as like who is in the office and who is not in the office, but it just feels intense. And I think for me, this year has provided just a lot of room for reflection around, why I do what I do, and really like what the commitment is to that work and what it requires. This isn't a job. It's not, you know, just something that you have to really understand why you're doing what you're doing, or you'll burn out pretty quickly. And so I think that this year has provided, with all of the chaos, space to really think through that, and really look at this as a movement, right? Food access, economic justice is a movement, and what are our pieces in that, and how do we show up for that every single day intersectionally? Because a lot of these issues, you know, if you are struggling to put food on the table, you probably are also struggling somewhere, you know, with housing or income or just healthcare. There's so many intersectional issues that are attached to just food access. And I think being able to just remember that, I think in my own lens of like, you know, what that feels like, or what it feels like to go through that, has helped me to really to double down my commitment. I think to Victoria's point earlier, you know, we plan, but also just, I think one of the things that has helped my sanity during this time is just really being able to be flexible, because the world is changing daily, and we can plan and we can prepare, but we have to be, you know, fluid enough to be able to shift with those changes. And so I think, you know, making sure that you know, we have the flexibility to do that. And I think part of that commitment that I was speaking to earlier is just really prioritizing to what we mean when we say self-care. It's more than a pedicure. It's more than, you know, like getting, I mean, really just being able to unplug and check in with yourself. I think one of the things that we're working on really hard in our organization is just to really talk about how we are caring for each other internally, and what that looks like, and how we even need to shift and include that into this work. We're not saviors, and, you know, we can't be on 24 hours a day. We have to have some balance to be able to be sustainable. So I think that, you know, just, I think the humility of that, I'm not Shiro or hero, or, you know, but we all show up to do this work, and we're committed to doing this work every single day. And this work will be here tomorrow. And we continue to show up and just give what we have, like just give the best of what we have, because we're coming from a place of giving the best of what we have, I think would have tried to center during this time, and really just take it a day, you know, if I need space, if I need an hour to kind of, you know, recalibrate, then it's okay to take that. So I'm probably doing as well as all of us on this call. This is an incredible time. This is something that, you know, this time last year, we had no idea that our lives would look like this. So a lot of things have shifted in the midst of that. And I think we're just, I don't even know. I think we might come out of this with PTSD a little bit of, you know, just, we just got through because we had to. And so, I mean, I'm grateful that I have such an incredible team that also just shows up with their best as well. And we support each other. So I'm really thankful for.
Thank you, Patience. And what a powerful message for all of us to take away from what you said about just caring for ourselves in all the creative ways, and like stealing time when we can get it. Thank you. Victoria, how are you? And how is this affecting your life as a whole person?
Super funny, because I was just gonna go, hey Amber, can you skip me, because I'm in the office and somebody is here with food. I need to let them in and I'll come.
Oh,
right
sure,
back.
sure. I can go
Awesome.
to Anne.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem. Anne, how are you?
Thank-
How is this affecting you?
I just wanted to say exactly kind of what you said, Amber, that what patients said, that really resonated, and thank you for saying all that. I feel that working on the front lines when all this first happened, the staff being essential business, we were just coming in every day. So I feel like at first we didn't even have time to adjust or really know what was happening, if that makes sense. And it almost took myself and staff a couple months until we all kind of had that time to really sit down, discuss. Emotions were kind of flowing, and we kind of had to regroup, because since we never skipped a day, it was great in the sense of, we had purpose, we were coming to work, but at the same time, it took us a minute to catch up with the rest of the world, if that makes sense. And so, I feel like having such a great team, we've had a lot of staff meetings, a lot of conversations. We've been working a lot with the board of directors to help give guidance, since obviously none of us have ever navigated this situation before. And I feel like through the support of the community, through the support of our clients, and then the staff, the board, we've been able to move forward. We definitely have our days and our weeks. Last week was one of those weeks in our county. Our regulations are tightening up again. And this Friday, we're going back down to more of a shutdown. And so obviously, giving everybody time to process that, and then kind of checking in with everybody and checking in with my family and seeing how does that affect us? What does that look like? With our AmeriCorps, they were going to leave for Thanksgiving, and now a lot of them have decided that they shouldn't leave. And so it's just been a lot of navigating, a lot of communication. I feel like change is never easy at first, but it can bring a lot of positive things. And so I feel like with our organization being able to do some strategic planning and giving us a new focus, that has really helped a lot in providing me with focus and guidance for the rest of the team, so that I don't feel like I don't know what I'm doing, that I have some goals in mind and some objectives. So it kind of gives us a game plan and kind of a new normal. And so I feel very grateful where we're at right now. But definitely, I kind of have the motto where things happen every day. I go to bed, I process, and then I wake up. It's a new day, and I start all over again. And that's really helped me be able to, come in with a smile, because I really feel as being the executive director, however I come in really affects how the team, how they move forward in their day. So by coming in, being positive, checking in, figuring out the game plan, I feel really helps. But we're just navigating day to day.
Thank you, Anne. That's pretty inspiring to think. Well, I guess I'm taking the AmeriCorps not leaving as this inspirational story, but maybe they're just not leaving for some other reasons. But the way I heard that was that they're staying because you're going to need the help through this time. Is that right?
Both. We need the help, but also as a team, with our COVID protocols, we've really sent the message out that we are a team, and how we live our daily lives and our interactions affects, since we all do come to work every day, and we're not in close quarters, but fairly close quarters, and we're working with food, and if we are not healthy, then this food does not go out to the community. So really every team member is really mindful of that, and has really taken great strides, and not only in the work environment, but in their personal lives, to ensure the safety of the staff. And so the AmeriCorps, they will be helping out then on Thanksgiving, but also felt that the situations they were going into maybe weren't the best. And then they would have to come back and possibly quarantine or do this. And they felt like you are saying, like that's not the best for the needs of MANA in the community at this time. So they really are looking at the community needs and then taking those sacrifices. Yes.
Thank you. I just think that's really really neat. And another, like, it's a small thread in this whole big tapestry of what people are doing, sacrifices they're making to be there for their community. So and it's also a testament to your leadership in that you've really obviously cultivated a team that feels connected in a way that they want to serve their community as a whole. So thank you, Anne. Victoria, I see you're back.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry. Like I alluded to earlier, everything kind of comes into this office now. And pre-COVID, we were more like air traffic control. So it's interesting. I don't know how I am in COVID. It's been really interesting because I feel I struggle a little bit because in a lot of ways I feel pretty fortunate. During the time of the pandemic, no one in my household has gotten sick because we, especially in the food access department, have always considered ourselves essential. I have probably spent more time in the office since the pandemic started and with my team than I ever did pre-COVID. But that's been interesting too because we have some single people that work here. We have people that don't have children, and it's just been interesting to hear people talk about the lack of human contact that they've had since COVID started. And I'm just like, I'm an introvert, so I think I get more human contact than I might even want right now. And then also just all of the people, even our volunteers that come in, having to navigate the school system and homeschooling and not knowing what's happening next. I have a really old kid and a really young kid. So I'm just like, who's not teaching from home or whatever the other parents are doing right now. So there's just like a lot of interesting empathy and like self-awareness. But then there's also the fact that I don't think I go almost anywhere. Like we go out every few weeks. So just in case somebody comes down with COVID, I'll be like, it was that Friday when we went to Target, right? And so that's been really interesting because the individuals and families that we serve are often some of the populations that are most impacted by COVID. I mean, we have a program where we deliver to seniors. We have a lot of people of color that come through our program, a lot of people that are just financially under-resourced. So it's been interesting because as our team, I think we've made commitments to kind of not go anywhere else because we could get shut down, right? If we had an outbreak and shut down, and it's kind of like so many of our partners shut down that we're kind of a last resort. And even though we realize that we're not doing this perfectly, we're doing the best that we can. And even though we also realize that we're maybe not the best access point, now location wise or even time wise for everybody, we're still trying to make sure that we stay open because something is better than nothing. So it's just kind of interesting. Like there's a lot of heaviness, but then I'm just like, all right, there's a reason that I maybe have the freedom to dig in a little more, because like to Patience's point, like we definitely did not slow down as an organization. And I also feel like sometimes we actually sped up to kind of run lightning speed. We literally had our programs up and running and moved on March. It was either March 15th or like 17th when the city said that we were gonna do shelter in place, and we were ready. And I think we've all gotten some extra big muscles because now again, instead of doing air traffic control, we're lifting sometimes literally a ton of food a day and putting it in a box and handing it out. So it's just it's an interesting time. And I guess the only part that maybe I have a little empathy for myself is maybe just a little bit weary at this point in time. Like we've been doing this for a long time, and it seems like there's still uncertainty about what's happening. I mean, even in our nation, we just got information that like a third of the people receiving food stamps in our community have not gotten them this month, which stinks because we're heading into Thanksgiving. So we started to see an uptick in people that have to come and see us. And then with the COVID changes of going down to 25% capacity, a lot of servers have just lost their jobs. And it's the holiday season when you need to have extra money to buy your turkeys and things. So it's kind of interesting because I think that the need is ramping up. Again, I think people that were also kind of maybe waiting to see what would happen with like the second wave of stimulus, and it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon. So it's kind of interesting, but actually talking through this, one of the things that I said at the beginning of COVID is I felt like I was working with the happiest COVID team possibly on the planet, because we would like crank up music and kind of dance around while we were making boxes while carefully putting food into them. But like the morale has really stayed up, and I think that maybe the new plan is to crank up the tunes again. So if you guys drive by the Helen Hunt campus and hear whatever loud thing playing, just come and stop by, take your temperature, do a little dance, put on a mask, all that good stuff.
Thank you, Victoria. I mean, you can tell all of you you've got to be exhausted and just doing everything you can to not be burned out to the point where you can't do this anymore. And like, just for you to end that on dancing and music is like inherently Victoria, like finding light in the middle of all of this. Catherine, how are you? And how is your life as a whole, like the intersectionality of the work? Being a grants manager for an organization serving so many counties across our state is a tremendous responsibility in the middle of all this.
Thanks. So yeah, I would say all of us are just, and me, we're all just taking it every day, as it comes. Every day is so different in our work. There have been so many changes, and our work has just been so fast paced. We're distributing right now like 50% more food than we were this time last year. So it's just a big lift. Early on when the pandemic started, we just had the mentality that this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. And we're getting further into the marathon, and just it's still surprising to believe that we have a long way ahead of us too. So yeah, just been really busy adjusting to working from home too for the better part of the year. About a third of our staff has been working from home, so that just leads to some disconnect within our morale that we would normally have all being together. So that's an adjustment. And I would say in my personal life, outside of work, kind of because of limitations on gatherings and involvements, my life has had a slower pace outside of work, which is a little bit bittersweet. And then just how this has affected my life as a human being is that I really had to wrestle with how kind of beauty and devastation can happen at the same time. And because we're living in a time of such great loss, but also some really great displays of generosity and humanity. And I see that in my role as a grant writer, just the outpour of generosity from funders and donors in our community doing everything they can to step up and help. And so that's so inspiring, while also being so sad that we we're facing something that requires that much generosity. So it's just an interesting kind of wrestle.
Thank you. I'm going to circle back, so you don't have to answer this now, but I am sort of a question on my mind, because Karen Share is actually, obviously, of the organizations we're talking to today, the biggest one. And from my understanding, there's been a dearth of generosity. I'm wondering, though, also if there are concerns of like how that might affect fundraising in the future for Karen Share. Like if a lot is happening now that then might like drop off later. That's a concern I have for lots of organizations. So you don't have to answer that just yet, but I'm definitely going to circle back. So one of the questions that I have, and Patience, I'm going to come back to you. I'm just going to sort of stay in the same line, is and I think that many of you have addressed a lot of this in how, because of who you are not, you're not answering the question when I say, how are you? You would not think to just say just only how you are. You, of course, it spreads out into your work as you respond, because so much of your work is you and your life right now. But what unique challenges are your organizations and the people that you are serving, like in your neighborhoods? What are you seeing that's potentially unique to Colorado Springs Food Rescue, the Hillside neighborhood, and the people that you're serving? Patience, sorry.
Oh, sure. So I would just say, I think the depth of intersection, again, like I was, so, you know, the neighborhood that we operate out of is also experiencing gentrification at this point, which affects housing costs, which affects property tax, which affects access to fresh food, right? Because it all comes from the same budget. I think that, you know, one of the unique challenges we also have is just, you know, operating a program in a way that is safe, knowing that the people that we are serving and working with are, as Victoria mentioned, those who are, you know, the virus itself is indiscriminate, but the way that it plays out does not break even. And I think operating the program in a way that takes that extra measure of precaution, and to keep those most vulnerable safe, as well as ourselves, has been a unique challenge, because we are an essential, we are essential workers, and we are, you know, people need food now more than ever, but also the people that we are serving, the populations that we are serving, are those who are disproportionate and more who would be affected by the virus in a different way than other parts of the population. So I think that is a unique challenge for us to also, again, you know, we are women of color here, and also trying to, you know, remember that we, you know, we are also needing to be included in that protection. So I would say that would be our most unique challenge.
Thank you, Patience. Victoria, what would you have to add to that?
So I think what's been interesting is, so our definition of community has shifted a little bit. Like Patience said earlier, we used to operate 9 no-cost grocery programs all around town. Now that most of those are closed, people from different areas of the community are coming to the Helen Hunt campus. I think one of the biggest changes that I've seen is it's really been interesting to see the ways in which people want to connect, or how they are trying to connect with you, because sometimes, I mean, for myself as well, like if we have somebody that comes an hour after program ends and there's food, we're just like, come on in and get it. And we'll let like that one person shop. And I think it's because it just feels better. It feels like what we do. It feels like what we're supposed to do. Or I think it's interesting that sometimes people that we do get to talk to, you can almost tell that they've been pretty isolated, because they talk to you about things for a little bit longer than you would normally have a conversation. I mean, it's kind of cool because I feel like pre-COVID, you're like, hey, how are you? And you just want the answer to be good, great, fine, and move on. And now it's kind of like, oh, this happened. And I'm like, wow, that was like a 20-minute conversation, which it's like sad because you can realize that there's a need for that connection in there, but then it's also kind of cool because it's like not something playing out on Facebook, and it's like an actual real human connection. And also it's been a little bit interesting because I actually live in Hillside. I have like the longest commute ever. I literally walk across the street to come to work. And I think that's why I got a job, because I told them no matter how snowy it is, I can always open the office. It worked. Y'all should try it. But it's been interesting because then I'll see people like in the community that are like, hey, can I get a box today? And like, there's a sweet little old lady that was like, but I can't carry it and I don't have a car. So then I'm just like, all right, where do you live? I will deliver you a box. But that is also cool because that's a way that I don't think that community really came together before. So it's, I don't know, the new normal.
I think you got hired for more than being able to cross the street in the snow for work.
I mean, probably so, but I'm just saying it works. I'm just saying, if you ever really need a job, you should try it. Be like, I will be the opener, the closer, the weekend person. And I'm just saying, cherry on top.
I think actually the example of you taking a box to somebody in your neighborhood who asked for it just in the neighborhood is exactly why you are the perfect person for where you are. So thank you, Victoria. And can you tell us about the unique challenges for your organization and the people that you're serving?
I think the first unique, I'm sure this is not a unique challenge, but that really affects us is transportation. Living in a rural community, when COVID first hit and the school shut down, it was great because our school district still provided daily meals through their buses. They would actually keep the bus routes going out and distribute food. And so we could we partnered with them to provide these take-home backpacks. And so usually we were doing about 150 to 200 backpacks a week. And with their assistance and this additional piece of the transportation, we were doing 480 backpacks a week. And so then once the school system, closed that option for summer, we did continue doing summer backpacks, and we transported them to different schools and had the backpacks outside in bins. But for the actual, students and the parents to get to the school to get the backpacks was a barrier. So we saw a decrease in the food that we could distribute. So transportation has been an aspect with definitely the school system. And then also we have a homeless encampment called the Purple Cliffs that is quite a few miles from Manna. And before there was transportation to get to Manna. And so with the lack of the transportation shutting down, we worked with another partner organization in town, Southwest Rides, and they actually picked up the meals and they were delivering it every day to the Purple Cliffs, which we're still doing. So, we've been able to work through some of the problems, but really transportation, with everybody's work schedule shifting with school closures, it's really hard for people to get here. And at this time, We've limited our exposure with the staff, so we don't have volunteers coming in. They do help us with picking up groceries from the stores and our donations and stuff like that. But we have not been able to get a system to do deliveries out to the majority of the community. So that's something we're working on. The other barrier for us is being known as the soup kitchen in Durango for so many years. A lot of people have a stigma associated with Manna that we only serve people experiencing homelessness. And we're really here for the whole community. And so one thing that we've seen is this shift from not having a soup kitchen and people coming in to receive their meals and sitting down and eating, but with doing these grab and go style meals out the back door. We've seen an increase of people using our services. And I feel like part of that is because there's not so much that stigma of coming in and having to really communicate with us to receive a meal, versus anybody can drive up, anybody can walk up, you can take as many meals as needed. There's no questions asked. And so we've really seen a lot more support that way. And then we've been doing a lot more marketing and working with partner organizations in the community to market, hey, we're here for everybody. So I feel like that's helping break down that stigma and that barrier. And then we've just through COVID, in a great way, it's kind of really solidified and strengthened a lot of our partnerships. And so, for instance, we work with Companeros and La Plata Family Coalition Center, and they come once a week, and they come and pick up a huge truckload of groceries, and then they take that and distribute it to their clients. So really allows us to do what we're really good at, which is either preparing these meals, getting these food boxes together, and then working with other partner organizations to decrease this barrier of transportation, stigma, and getting that food out to where it's needed.
Wow, that's going to blend right into my next question when I circle back around about adaptations, because it sounds like, I mean, you all have started moving into that part of the conversation, right? About like how you've had to shift and do things differently, and maybe even learn some new efficiencies and just like creative ways of doing things. So thanks for sharing that, Anne. And if you have more to share around things that you've done differently, that's what I'm going to be talking to you about next. After Catherine shares with us some of the challenges, obviously you're serving these 31 counties. So I think that you have a different lens when I ask this question about like unique challenges. So if you can share that with us.
Sure. Yeah. So, kind of to backtrack to mid-March, when COVID really started to hit our community, we knew that our service area was going to be looking to us for more help than ever. And so we had to respond quickly and nimbly. And we have experience responding to disasters, but this was just unlike anything ever before. So the increase in need for food assistance and our services spiked really quickly, which we heard from our partners and we saw firsthand at our distributions and through our programs. Studies from Feeding America show that from 2019 to 2020, food insecurity in Southern Colorado grew from 1 in 9 individuals facing food insecurity to now 1 in 6. And for children, that is currently 1 in 4 children who are facing food insecurity in Southern Colorado. So the need has grown, we've seen it for the people we serve. The challenges we're hearing them expressed to us is that a lot of families have never ever needed food assistance before. They've never sought help from a food bank or a food pantry. And so they are shocked to be there. And it takes so much courage for them to come and seek the help that they need. For a lot of them, their hours were cut, or the industry that they work in has reduced their business hours. Still today, people are struggling to find employment. So that's leading a lot of them to our doors and our partners' doors. So throughout this whole pandemic, we've leaned a lot on our partners. Like I said earlier, most of the food we distribute is through partner food pantries and partner agencies. And early on, in the first months of this, a lot of our partners had to make the difficult choice to close their doors because they didn't have the resources, or they're volunteer powered, or the volunteers that run their organization are older adults. And so just as a health precaution, they chose to close their doors. So for the partners that remained open, we saw them taking on more clients. And so those are some of the challenges we're seeing. In terms of our work, something that might be unique is that we've had our biggest challenge has been sourcing food. So if you think about when you or I were going to the grocery store and some of our favorite items were gone from the shelves, or essentials were gone from the shelves, Care and Share saw that too in the food supply chain where we normally receive donations. A lot of those really staple items were unavailable. So we've gone about purchasing a lot more food than normal instead of waiting for food to be donated. So we purchase food from farmers, manufacturers across the country, and that's related to our Feeding America affiliation. We can receive food at discounted rates from partnerships across the country. So that's been helpful, but the cost of food has increased and there's been delays in delivery. So it's just a little bit unpredictable what we're gonna get and when we're gonna receive it. And then another challenge we faced is in terms of volunteer power. So typically in a year, we see about 5,000 volunteers, unique volunteers, come to Care and Share and help us do our work. They sort food, they are involved in like every aspect of our work. And we've had to reduce shift sizes by about half and spread out volunteers to maintain social distancing. And so that has shifted some of that workload onto our staff. And so they've been doing more. And the last challenge I'll mention is just the school year and our partnerships with schools. We partner with schools across 19 of the counties that we work in and host children's programs. So we have a backpack program too. We have school food pantries and a snack program to reach children and their families when school food isn't available. And so with all the changes to the school year, we've had to really shift those programs to prepackaged bags and rely more on the school contacts there to work with the families directly to set up distributions or pickups for that food.
Thank you. It's interesting, and Sarah asked a question about volunteers, which I definitely am going to circle back with all of you, because particularly in distributing food, all of your organizations are obviously so dependent on volunteers. But while I have you, Catherine, what are some of the things that you've seen, and how we actually did a session with Eric Pizzana before he moved on with our volunteer engagement roundtable, talking about how he was having to adapt in keeping volunteers safe and how many volunteers dropped off and just the different ways you all had to adapt. Do you have anything that you can comment on that before I ask Patience, Victoria, and Anne about it?
Sure, yeah. So like I said, some of the because we just have fewer volunteers right now, some of that work has landed on some of our staff. We, at the beginning, I think in April we were able to hire some part-time staff just to pick up the load when there really were very few volunteers coming through. But yeah, right now we have reduced shift sizes. We spread out our groups. Everyone wears a mask. They have to sign up ahead of time. So yeah, there's just been a lot of changes to make sure that everyone can be safe. And we have some incredibly dedicated volunteers, people who are working as much as some of our full-time staff, just because they know that there are a lot of people who can't step up and volunteer right now, so they've filled in.
Yeah, it's funny when Eric did that roundtable for us, he talked about how some of the older volunteers who couldn't come in started making masks for other volunteers because like that was one way they could still contribute without putting themselves at risk or exposure. So patients, I muted myself. I'm going to ask you and Victoria to talk about any adaptations that Colorado Springs Food Rescue has made in these times and just some things other people can learn from, and maybe even the other organizations here on the call that are part of the panel. So if you can share about that, and also since we're talking about volunteers, what the impact has been on your organization as it relates to volunteers and how you may have adapted in that way as well.
Right. So actually, I think we're in the midst of an adaptation. Initially, when the pandemic hit, we had, we put out a call for mutual aid, and we had an influx of volunteers. And we were able to, one of the adaptations that we were able to put together was being able to deliver meals to seniors. Because they felt, those were immune compromised and they didn't want to come out of their house and they didn't have access to any type of personal shopper or a way to get their food. We were able to deliver and still are delivering to those individuals. We have, seems like we recently have hit a volunteer fatigue. And so we're talking right now about how, because, where we don't have volunteers, I mean, basically staff has to pick up that slack, which is for a long period of time is not sustainable. So we are actually working to rev up our volunteer base. I mean, we always have a baseline of amount of volunteers to, continue food rescue shifts. This is a really hard thing is that because, usually like volunteer appreciation is gathering somewhere, having, just some way of expressing appreciation to our volunteers and acknowledging the hard work that they put in. And, given that COVID has just changed the way we do things, where, looking at how we can appreciate volunteers in a different way, even virtually. But I'll let Victoria speak to how they've, how they continue with the volunteers that currently do our rescue shifts and what adaptations they've had to make.
Thank you. Victoria.
So you bake lots of cookies and give people eggs from your chickens. Well, okay, we do that too and play music, but it's been really interesting. We're really just trying to meet people like where they're at, and it's kind of become an interesting family style thing. I mean, like, I don't want to say you kind of have to learn how to read the room or read your volunteers. I mean, because that's something that I think any volunteer manager coordinator knows. But like, I would say the people that come in, like we've had people that have run our programs for years, and they come in and do extra shifts. So I mean, it's about like communication, collaboration, like, hey, can you do this? If you find extra ways to appreciate someone, let them know. Like we just recently had our virtual Harvest Fest, which is our annual fundraiser. So we had extra dinners. So we were kind of like, hey, volunteers, do you want us to have a dinner delivered to you from Snooze or some other organization? So I think it's just the little things that you can really do. Or we've had some people that have been volunteering very, very consistently. And then because of the way COVID has impacted them, they'll say things like, I'd really like to come and volunteer today, but I can't afford to put gas in my car. So then we just go get them a gas card from somewhere. So we've gotten really, really creative here. And then also just tried to reach out, but then also respect that like some of our really consistent people have dropped off because, and I have to respect that because a lot of those people like ramped up. And I just don't think anybody knew that we would still be here at this time. So, I mean, just like a lot of forgiveness of self, forgiveness of people when they're like, hey, I can't come in today. Being a lot kinder, gentler, more respectful. I think really just respecting where all of us are. And then I think what's really made a difference is to do those sincere check-ins, like, how are you? What is going on? I mean, how are we all processing COVID today? And I think that I just want to, I don't know. I think what's kept people going and what's continued to draw people in is we really have just, it's been going on so long that we're just not doing that surface level stuff anymore. It's not like, oh, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. You're a food rescue hero. It's kind of like, how are your kids impacted? Do you need more food? Oh, you can't come in today. You know what? Can we make you a box? Can we deliver you a box? Which, I don't know, they might sound like little things, but I mean, I think it's the little things that keep people connected, right? Like I think we've really shifted to just that genuine care and concern.
I was just pausing. You probably also saw Sarah's got a question. So I'm going to come back to this question also from Sarah. And I'm going to ask you about adaptations that you all have made and anything you'd also like to say about volunteers. And then after that, where we're coming at in time, I think I'm going to open it up for Q&A, which is where we'll circle back to Sarah's question. And then if we have time, I'd also just love to hear like anything like a personal story that you might want to share about like either what's inspiring or what's really hard. So that's what's coming. And you are up next to share about adaptations that you've made at MANA and anything you would like to share about how it's been with volunteers as well.
Perfect. So with volunteers, we usually see around about 500 volunteers a year. The majority of our volunteers are 60 years old or older. And so when everything hit and in our county with the regulations, we called all of our volunteer groups and let them know and sent a bunch of emails out saying, hey, at this time, we're not accepting volunteer opportunities. And so that's kind of how we kept it. We have used volunteers for picking up food from City Market, Albertsons, and those normal pickups and deliveries we have. But one way we've kept everybody connected is we started doing a weekly email blast. So at the beginning of COVID, we would do like an email and letting volunteers know what happened this week, what our meal count was, and then also giving them a list of things we need. So, we need clothing, we need this food item, monetary support. And so we kept doing that. And then we went to like bi-weekly newsletters, and now we're back to monthly newsletters. And then just keeping in that constant communication with our volunteers. For us, being such a small staff, we just felt like at this time it's safer for the staff if we have limited connections with anybody. So we're still trying to keep that communication involvement. But with the way our building's set up, we have such a big open space that it's really hard to control or to really navigate when people are in there. And so that's one of the things that we've been working on. And so with the volunteers, we were fortunate enough that in February of this year to get this partnership with La Puente Home in Alamosa, where we began working with them and was able to host AmeriCorps service members. And so for the first time in MANA's history, we have 5 AmeriCorps service members. And due to COVID, they were allowed to perform additional services that might not be in their job descriptions. So pretty much the whole team has been really involved in, helping get these meals out, the groceries. So the team's just been really good at shifting what their priorities are. And so that's how we've been able to fill in the gap with not having the daily volunteers that we usually do. And so with the other big adapt for us was with not having clients be able to come into the soup kitchen, to go to these grab and go meals. And then before COVID, we were serving around 4,000 to 5,000 meals a month. And now with the grab and goes, we serve anywhere from 9,000 to 13,000. We're distributing a lot more food than we ever have working with these partner organizations. So before we would do about 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of food a month. And now we're seeing anywhere from like 13,000 to 20,000 of pounds of food going out per month. And so kind of with these adaptations and then working on a strategic plan, we kind of have decided that we're going to remodel the soup kitchen. And instead of being a place where people can come and sit and eat meals together, we're going to make it half a resource center. And then half is going to be a food market where people can actually come in and select the food that they would like. It will be free. And then we will have like a to-go window where we will serve these daily meals that anybody can come up, no questions asked. So kind of with this model and this remodel, we'll also be able to start allowing both clients and volunteers back in the building because we'll have a reception desk. We'll be able to have things in place where people can come in, get their temperature taken. There'll be a little more structure to what we've had in the past. So that's one way we're kind of moving towards the future. And because we really do miss seeing all our volunteers. And right now we're doing supportive services outside with clients. So we're trying to figure out a way in between changing to this new model and what we're doing now for the winter. Because really, seeing everybody and getting to, it's just so much more valuable in our daily lives too, to have that additional support.
Wow, that is huge. And it's interesting to think about your strategic plan being just like a full-on adaptation related to COVID, but then it's going to change your work from here on out. So even whenever that is, we move past this current crisis, it's really going to still have a pretty big effect on your work. And it sounds like a really positive one. Would you say, I mean, obviously you wouldn't be moving in that direction if you didn't think it was a positive move.
Correct. It's just we've been doing a lot of research for the last couple of years, trying to figure out, what people are doing, what other organizations are doing, and what the impact is, and being able to provide choice with food is just so valuable, and so we want to move towards that. And it's one of those opportunities for us that with COVID. I'm not sure when 100, 120 people are going to be able to sit in a room that aren't from the same household and be able to enjoy a meal together. And so we didn't want to just sit and wait for that moment. We wanted to start impacting people's lives, as soon as possible. And by at least people being able to come, getting the supportive services they need to have that connection, and then also to be able to go and shop what groceries they would like, and then be able to still prepare those amazing meals at home. But then to have this takeout window where people can get this daily meal and just come up, no questions asked, grab a meal. You know, we're just trying to provide access to all those different programs. And just the space we had wasn't working for that. So through COVID, you know, it's been able, because none of us, well, I know our organization after 35 years has made many changes, but this is a huge change. And so it's really pushing us to make this change for the better. And I don't know if it would have been accepted this quickly through the board, the staff, and through the community if we weren't so impacted.
Thank you, Anne. That's just a really cool way that you all have. I mean, it's a nice sign about your board also being willing to change quickly. And you know, we all know that working in nonprofits and working with boards, you all need to be in alignment with how quickly you need to move and how you're moving in that way. And so it's I feel really good for you all that you have a board that's really supportive of these changes and obviously going to help build the resources to make those things happen. So I see actually that we have about 12 minutes left, and I really want to hear any like personal stories, something for all of us to sort of take away from like your daily life or something about the people that you work with. So what I'm going to ask is if any of you have time while another person is sharing, if you want to drop maybe a response or some thoughts to Sarah in the chat to her question. We haven't gotten any other questions, so I'm just going to ask to just go ahead into the leaving us with something that's personal for you, that's either been inspiring or again, you know, we can handle hearing some of the hard things too. So whatever you feel like would be important to share as we get ready to close this Stories from the Frontlines. And I will hand it to Patience and then go to the rest of you.
Sorry, so just a story of during this time, just to share. Yeah, I think just, I mean, I think not as specific. I don't have a specific, I'm sure I do. I'm not thinking of one right now, but I think to look back and to know, I think we've distributed, you know, with our small little operation, our small office, we've distributed over 200,000 pounds of food since COVID first started, which is just incredible for us. In addition, like we're starting construction of the Hillside Hub, and I think that it's like I was saying earlier on this call, just this going through this pandemic and really looking at the food system, you know, just like laying it open and what does that mean in an urban environment? What does that mean around the intersections of you know, like community wealth building? And we were fortunate enough as well. We've been going through our 3-year strategic plan through this process and, you know, going through this pandemic, and really we've been having conversations, you know, been very methodical for the past 3 years of the direction that we want to go, and, you know, what we're hoping will be cultivated in the Hillside Hub, having a space, and it's a place, and it's a community gathering space. Obviously that changes a little bit with COVID, but the mission has not, and I think it's more relevant than ever. And so I think that's one of the things for me personally that's been encouraging during this time, is just because it just feels so right that we're moving in the direction that moves us closer to our values of our mission, that will actually have impact in the way, not just in the way that people are accessing food, but the way that people are able to even obtain income from it. And so I think now more than ever that is needed. And yeah, I just it feels, you know, we're rebranding. You'll see that soon. So beginning of the year we'll have a new name, you know, where it feels like we're just going through a metamorphosis, but the metamorphosis is exactly on time and where it needs to be, and it has helped us to just show up in this moment in a way that it feels golden, and it feels like we've been preparing for this, although obviously like nobody could have prepared for COVID, but as far as just moving closer to value alignment with our work, it feels like we're moving closer into that direction, and it feels great.
Oh my gosh, I loved how you just said it's golden. Like right in the middle of like the pandemic, and things are getting worse and weirder every day right now, but it's so it's inspiring and encouraging, and also so true. Just that that we are all going through this outrageously challenging time, and because you have been preparing and been doing the work, you're ready. And like as you're going through this transformation as an organization, it's like right on time. It's like as we move through this pandemic, which will end at some point, you will be in a stronger position, is what I'm hearing you say, for your community. And the way you've shown up for your community is just like building all of this foundational trust and more relationship through this crisis. And I feel like when you described it as golden is just so beautifully articulated. Thank you. Victoria.
Oh man. Gosh, I just gonna say that I don't know. I guess that the pandemic has just really brought me to this incredibly soulful place in the way that I connect with people and the way that I truly understand what's happening. When we first started doing this in March, because we live in Colorado Springs, it was super cold, freezing cold. Where we're trying to figure out how to do this work and keep people safe and not bring them in the building. And again, do it while it was freezing cold. And part of the way I lead is I have to like see it and do it first, and then can share it with other people. So when we first started, I was the person that was like standing out, taking names. And I would like to reiterate, super, super, super cold. And it was funny because like I had some people that were like, I can't wait in this line. I'm too cold. And I was like, I have been standing outside before you all lined up, trying to figure this out. And I need you to give me a little bit of grace here. And then I think maybe like 4 days in, I had somebody yell at me because we ran out of food. And I was probably a little bit over it because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And again, it's really cold. And I've been standing out here longer than any of you. But it really impacted. I really feel like I learned what not having access to food means, because somebody else stepped in and was like, okay, fine. We don't have a whole box for you, but like we have a turkey left and a cake. Would you like a turkey and a cake? And then the person said, no, I can't take the turkey. And I am incredibly human. My gut reaction was like, you just yelled at me and now you don't want to take the stupid turkey. I'm done. And then cooler heads prevailed. And the person that ended up helping him, they told him, I can't take a turkey because I don't have an oven to cook a turkey in. Oh my gosh, that made me almost tear up a little bit, but that was just, it was so profound and just made me really want to do this work in a different way, and even just like check myself at the door. Because I mean, like, not even all the hardships that it takes to get here, but then for somebody to really not be able to do anything with the food that we had access to, and just like to feel that frustration and understand it. It's it's just profound. So now every time that somebody like says something interesting or creative or something I don't understand, I really am just like, you know what? We are all struggling right now. And at the end of the day, we're going to give you food. So I could give you food with a smile, or I could give you food with a nasty attitude. And so it's really about choosing to do it in the positive way, because then we all walk away from that experience feeling a little bit better.
Dang. You made me cry, Victoria.
I'll send you some Kleenex via
Thank you.
something touchless.
I'll come over there and, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that story. Just so much like your humanity and the humanity of the people you serve, just everybody showing up the best they can at the time they show up. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anne, do you have a story that you'd like to leave us with about your experience or the people that you're working with that's more personal, or an example of what's feeling good or even what's particularly challenging right now?
I don't have a specific story. Just like what Victoria said, I think it's those small wins and being present. And I love what you just said about basically service with a smile, because it just I have one person that comes probably at like 5:30, that comes and gets food, and usually I'm the only one there, and it's great because it takes me out of what I'm doing that day. And, I get to go over, make him a food box. I have plenty of time to personally chat with him, see what he wants. And the reason he can't get there is because it takes him a long time to get out of bed and to get moving. And so that's just kind of the time that works for him. But by doing it through the process, it makes me realize just kind of all the emotions Victoria was saying. Like, at first it's like, oh, taking my time doing this, but then realizing just what a great service we're providing, taking that time to get to know him, and, just going full circle. And so it's just a really great reminder to me of why we're here. And just those little wins every day are just so important, because everybody has a voice, everybody has a story. And when you get to connect with that, it just makes me so grateful for what I do, and by, making it all worthwhile every day.
Thank you. Thank you for what you do, Anne. I feel like Food Rescue and Mana should talk to each other, because it seems like you all are doing like so much similar work, obviously with different communities. But I don't know, I just feel like this is a cool connection too in this conversation. So Catherine, do you have any stories? I mean, I know even as a grant writer, you're always asking for stories from the people who are out on the front lines so that you can share that with funders. Do you have anything that comes to mind that you'd like to leave us with today?
Sure, yeah. So like pre-COVID, we had really dreamed up some big ideas, pipeline dreams for what we wanted to do over the next 2 years. And then the need grew so quickly, and some of those dreams had to come into fruition immediately, and we had to start implementing some of those programs to meet the needs. So one of those ways is through our mobile market, which is like a grocer on wheels. And that's allowed us to meet a lot of neighbors and go directly to areas of where there's a high concentration of need. And so one story that comes to mind is this woman named Mary who came to the mobile market, and she's a grandmother and a retired music teacher, and she started taking care of her grandkids more just because she liked the company and to help out her daughter. And as COVID hit and the kids were staying at home more often, it meant she was going to need to provide them more meals. So it's just a unique situation for a senior who is already high risk, and you know, yeah, just navigating their own challenges at this time and also needing to provide more food for their grandkids. And so through our mobile market that goes right into her neighborhood, she was able to access food and have more food available to her grandkids that she cares for. So things like that have just been really inspiring to us. We've started new programs that we never ever imagined we could possibly do, and suddenly we were doing them in partnership with other amazing organizations in the community, and the limits we kind of thought existed around our work have been totally blown up. So for that reason, I'm really encouraged moving forward in this work of improving food access, because we're doing things we never thought we could together. And I think it's going to change the course of our work forever.
I think that's an awesome way to end in terms of like all of us, I feel like have sort of lifted the veil of what we thought was limiting to us in this time. Like when you have to make changes and you have to get creative, like we've all been figuring out things we never thought were possible. And your organizations and you as people doing the work are all powerful examples of that. So thank you, Catherine, for being the last person to share from Care and Share Food Bank. Thank you, Ann Morse from MANA. And thank you, Patience and Victoria from Colorado Springs Food Rescue for being here today. And again, taking time out of this important, critical work that you're doing for our communities across Colorado. And just for what you're giving of yourselves as humans. Obviously, these are only called jobs. It's clearly like the work and calling of who you are, and it shows in every way that you show up. So thank you so much for your time. And we, as I said, we'll be putting this recording up on YouTube. We'll be sharing this everywhere we can because we want everyone to hear your stories and what's happening out there for people. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day. I wish you all the best and safety and health as we go forward into these winter months. Thank you so much for your time.